This podcast is brought to you by State Champs. State Champs is running a special giveaway right now for every purchase from statechampsco.com, their online shop, between February 7th and April 7th, enters you to win 2 tickets to She Believes Cup in Columbus, Ohio this April. Be sure to follow along at This is State Champs to learn more and visit them at statechampsco.com.
Welcome to Across the Pond Women's College Basketball. I'm Stacia Whitaker.
And I'm Aubrey Knight.
We have a new national champion, even though it doesn't feel that new because it was only 2 years removed. Congratulations to the South Carolina Gamecocks for completing, was it one of 10 perfect seasons in the NCAA era?
Yeah, it was the 10th.
10th one. Congratulations to all of them for replacing all 5 starters and have these youngins just going off in this game like they have this whole year. That's pretty much it. Like they have this whole year. Yeah. It wasn't pure dominance, but at one point it felt like, yeah, they got this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they were talking about in the post game, this was their redemption year, their redemption era, and they definitely proved that. I mean, they outplayed Iowa in that game. Iowa obviously came close in the end, but it's hard to only play with 5 players, and that's what Iowa was doing. South Carolina had, I think the last thing I saw was 37 points from the bench, and Iowa had 0.
Yeah, I mean, just simple stuff.
Yeah.
Just simple stuff. I did like at the end, though, Molly Davis, who they thought may be able to come back and play with her knee brace on after getting injured before the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
And I thought that because I saw her in dress, and I was like, I hope this girl gets in if she can, if they're like ahead by enough with like a second left to inbound a ball, or I was like, if they're behind. And so when she came in, I was like, yep. And they didn't get her the ball. And I was like, let her touch the ball. But that's always nice for an injured player. And I remember back in the day, a Tennessee player named Lori Mulligan came in and inbounded the ball when they won and just kind of like smiled and shrugged. And so I was happy on that. But I do have to talk about South Carolina because one of my good friends pointed out to me, because I was like, I barely knew who Tessa Johnson was, like this year. I was like, yep, she'd come in. I was like, oh, yeah, she's good. And my friend goes, well, she kind of is the one that asks the questions or is like the host of their TikTok when they do question of the day. And so my friend knew who she was, and so I went and watched some awesome TikToks from South Carolina. But Tessa Johnson, I am just kind of like amazed at how good she played and did not seem to worry at all. And that's been like the key with the South Carolina freshman this year. But Tessa Johnson was just so impressive to me. And one time a falter felt like just kind of tripped, and she just like was like la la la, dribbled right in front of the 3-point line and hit a nice little, didn't go for a 3, hit a nice little like free throw line jumper. And when you are a freshman and you lead the team in scoring with 19 points and are 7 of 11 from the field, it's pretty impressive. I mean, that's pretty much a little over half of their bench points from her. And then she had a post-game interview, and for some reason, I'm always just impressed when people are just like on point in the interview. And I was like, oh, no wonder why she hosts the TikToks. This girl can speak well. And Andrea Carter, I think, said something another time with her and Shanae and Elle in the studio about, I believe it was Aaliyah Moore. Oh, she's coming for our job because of how well Aaliyah Moore for Texas had an interview. And I was like, I think Tessa Johnson is coming for your job. That was just a game for her. And girl's a freshman. Like, what is anyone going to do with South Carolina in these next few years?
I don't know. I mean, I think this could be the beginning of a dynasty. I mean, we'll have to see what happens next year, and as we'll get into all the transfer portal, things like that happening, but they play as a team, and that showed that is what dominated this year. I mean, having an undefeated season, playing in that championship game. And they also talked about when one person might have a good game, how do you kind of like rally around that person? And I thought that their answers in the post game were amazing. It's just, this is a team. Whenever someone has a good night, we support them. And that's the culture that has been created at South Carolina. And not every team can say that, right? And I think that is going to go a lot farther than some of these other teams that just have a few dominant players but aren't playing the team sport as it is. So I'm excited to see how South Carolina does this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to say about excited about what these kids,
Yeah,
these, teenagers are gonna do in the next few years because, Raven Johnson, I think she was like Raven's revenge was what she said about getting shrugged off last year with Caitlin, and she still did not shoot well. The only shot that she made was the layup at the end of the first half that she stole
yeah,
from Caitlin Clark, but she locked her up on defense after they put her on her, and then it was tough go for Caitlin shooting. I think she only had 7 points after that, but, good on her for figuring out a way to make an impact to get a national championship. And she was fun to watch. Chloe Kitts was fun just for the fact that she put her earrings on for the post game celebration. Um, that will never not be hilarious to me. Ashlyn Watkins, who can jump out of the building, just I don't even know. She had one block, and I was like, "Yep, there you go, girl."
yep.
But pow
We
pow.
get
But I
the
think
Cardoso.
I'm not even getting to Cardoso. I'm gonna talk about the difference because last year Iowa beat them because they didn't make any threes. Well, talked about Tessa Johnson, 3 of 6 from 3, and then Pow Pow, 3 of 4 as a team, 8 of 19. So you're shooting 40% from 3. When last year, I think they made 1, maybe 2, and then shot horribly from the 3-point line. And last year, it was 77-73 in the Final Four that Iowa won. And this year, Iowa scores 75. If they would have held them like they did last year, it'd have been different. But the thing
Yeah,
is that South Carolina can shoot the threes, and they got, as you said, big girl in the middle, 17 rebounds, 15 points, 7
crazy.
of 14 shooting. Like Cardoso.
Yeah.
Oh,
Didn't we talk about that's how many rebounds Caitlin was going to need to break
yeah.
the record?
To get to 1,000, she would have needed 17
Yep.
rebounds, and she ended up getting 8 rebounds, so she's 9 away from 1,000 for her career. So
Yeah.
she needed, like, a game, maybe a game and a half more to do that, which,
It was a game like
like
Cardoso on the boards.
yeah, it's just Cardoso,
I
now
know.
most outstanding player, um, and I think this is such a good turnaround because we talked about how maybe someone could get into her head after
Yeah.
the SEC, and, she only played 5 games in the tournament, but they weren't gonna need her in that first game. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, the bench would have won that first game because the bench is amazing. But good on her. And the WNBA mock draft has her up one to be third instead of fourth. But yeah, good on Cardoso. Way to be big because you had it. I
Mhm.
just I'm still just kind of amazed that this is the South Carolina team did this, and I that's all I can say. I'm just kind of amazed.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't think anyone expected at the beginning of the season. And look what they did, undefeated season. And honestly, they deserve it. They played great, obviously, throughout. Didn't let up. I didn't think they were going to do it. I said earlier that they were going to lose in the tournament. So they proved me wrong, that's for sure. Undefeated season is never easy. So
Yeah.
congrats to
Well,
them.
Dawn gets her third title.
Mhm.
That's exciting. She joins a very short list of people. One we're going to talk about later, but you know, South Carolina, the most anyone scored on them this whole year was 76. And I think it's the second game of the year. Maryland did. Indiana scores 75 in the tournament in the Sweet 16. Iowa gets 75. So scoring 75 in South Carolina is definitely something to be proud of. And I mean, we can talk about Caitlin Clark all day, but that first quarter made us all believers.
Yep.
Um, and even her coach was like, "Don't shoot that." Like at the end of the quarter, and was like, "Oh, it went in. Oh, okay, I'm good." And so, even though the Magic couldn't pull off like the ultimate win, the
Mhm.
Magic was there in that first quarter where it was like, "Okay, girl, you're that girl.
Yep.
You're that girl." Yeah. So we can't even get into the career, but I feel like it's been a completely different world in basketball. I mean, COVID came in and changed some things, and then we got one of the greatest stars we're ever going to see these past 4 years, and
Yep.
her, and just the growth of the sport and the money that they have generated, and the
Yeah.
fact that they played on a football field this year outside and got
Yeah.
55,000 fans, and then continued selling out everywhere they went is just a testament to the change that we all knew should have happened if we actually just gave attention to women's basketball.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about it in the last episode. You asked me if I thought Caitlin Clark could be the GOAT if she doesn't have a national championship. And Dawn Staley said it right at the end of that, at the end of the post game interview. She is one of the goats of women's basketball, and she will continue to grow the WNBA when she gets there. It's not just about, college women's sports. She is elevating the entire women's sports in general. So she is the GOAT. No one can argue that, regardless if she doesn't have a national championship under her belt. Doesn't matter. She's the GOAT. She's done so much for it, and I'm glad that we got to watch her in our lifetime.
It's pretty special. I think my favorite story about her changing things is I was talking to some college kids this year, college men, and I was like, "Oh, I was watching the game," and that they thought I was talking about a Kansas men's game. And I said, "Oh no, not that game, the game." And immediately one of the guys goes, "Oh, did Caitlin get the record tonight?" He knew what I was talking about in insinuating that, and that's where things have changed. Where it's not just one thing. They're not the default. And the ratings have proved it. They peaked at 24 million watching the South Carolina game, averaged 18.9 million. It's the first time that a women's game has had a bigger audience than a men's championship game. And it's going to keep on going. I was like, not saying this is going to happen every year, but it should be recognized, and it is. So
Yeah.
Thank you, Caitlin Clark, for all of that. Thank you, everyone else, because it's not just her. The personalities in women's college basketball are excellent, including the South Carolina freshman, Cardoso. LSU puts in there. I've talked about how much I like Oregon State. And, we have the history with a GOAT coach that we're going to talk about later that has also put in there. But, yay. All right. So besides the national championship game, what are our favorite games of the 2024 NCAA tournament? You can start off and you can stab me in the heart right now. Do it.
Colorado versus K-State. I'm sorry about that. Didn't go your way, went my way. That was a really fun game to watch. I think all the Colorado games, I'm obviously biased. I think all of those were my favorites. So Colorado versus Iowa, even though that didn't go the way that I wanted it to, it was a good game, and it was fun to be able to watch that. But my number one is probably Colorado versus K-State.
That first half was really good. It was right on. And then the second half, I wish K-State would have scored a little bit to make it more interesting, but that was a lockdown defense being there for. I'm going to shout out my University of Kansas women coming back, being down by 10 with 6 minutes left to go against Michigan in the first round to win in overtime. They played well for a solid 10 minutes of the game, and they were the last 10 minutes, which were important. And that made me very happy. But besides our teams, I'm going to go with I really liked Baylor versus USC when your mom calls and is happy about, I think they're Baylor. They're on it. They're going to do it. They're going to take down Juju and is excited. That's always nice. But I'm going to go with a team that I kind of jumped on this year, which was Oregon State and Notre Dame.
Okay.
Nose ring fiasco aside, you have 26 turnovers and you still figure out a way to win just by getting consistent at the end. It was a close game. I liked it. And then I'm going to let you go with one that we super agree on, Iowa versus UConn.
Yes. That was a fun game to watch. Both teams were battling. If anyone missed out on that game, you should definitely go back and watch the replays of that, because that was a battle. And Iowa versus LSU also. I think those two are right there. Iowa versus LSU was obviously rematch from last year. Got a lot of attention, but I think UConn and Paige has been underrated this entire year, as we had kind of talked about. So it was nice to be able to see Paige and Caitlin kind of go at it for that.
Fun fact, Iowa had never beaten UConn until that game.
Crazy.
Yeah.
They did it when they needed to. National championship.
It's and Paige next year, Paige buckets. I hope AZ Fudd gets a whole year and her and Paige together, because that's going to be a dynamic duo if it happens.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go with, those are all great games that I loved. And sticking in the state of Iowa, I loved Stanford versus Iowa State. Yeah. Another overtime game. I really did not know who's going to win until the last 15, 20 seconds. I was like, okay, Stanford's got this. Yeah. And so Tara gets her last opportunity to win at Maples, as we have learned, and pulls it off. And Kiki has over 40 points. Emily Ryan had, I believe, 36. And so you have two players going at each other. And you have the young Iowa State team that Oh god, they're gonna be that's gonna be the best team in Iowa next year, the Iowa State team. They're gonna take it back, and Audie Crooks is gonna be the best player in Iowa. I mean, Stolke may have something to say about that, but that's the game I want to go to next year, the Iowa State game. But Iowa State Stanford pulls out in overtime. If
Yep.
you are bored, go watch the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter and overtime, especially overtime. Oh my gosh, so many points, so many shots. That I believe is the game of the tournament if you're just basing it on games and not on significance of the games. I mean, all games are significance, but it's a second round game. There's
Yeah.
different things that are heightened. And the fact that it was on the West Coast and I stayed up and I was like, this is late. I was like, I kept wanting to go to bed and I was like, no one's proven that they're gonna win this yet. And
Yeah.
so excellent game.
And then it's obviously, now as we know, Tara is retiring. So her last, home game and kind of gateway into her career has been remarkable. Having 45 years as a head coach under her belt, 38 years at Stanford. She's the all-time winning coach. She has 5 national titles on 5-time National Coach of the Year, 18-time Pac-12 Coach of the Year. I mean, this is a legend that we're losing in the sport.
She has, I think it's like 14 Final Fours, and she's got 3 national championships.
Yep.
And she went out. They were the Pac-12 champs this year. So
Yep.
you're going out being the last time that there's Pac-12, you win conference, and then your team makes the conference finals of the tournament. So you're right there for both, as you should be with your crown. The 1,216 games, I mean, wins. But I think the most significant thing that I go with Tara is, like, when it comes to one thing, I'm going to say it doesn't have anything to do with women's college basketball. And I'm going to go with coaching the Olympic team in 1996, especially after watching the Dream On documentary, because that was the catalyst to the WNBA and
Yeah.
to paving a way for the future, which is something that Tara has done. And despite the fact that her players called her Lucy, short for Lucifer, during that, and then how much respect they still have despite calling the lady crazy and intense. And Tara even said herself, on a 1 to 10, it was probably an 11. She gave up a year of coaching, and she had a good team that year, to go around the world with these women. They were 60-0, undefeated, because they had to be, and win the Olympic gold medal, which then had people invest to a professional league here, which still exists. That, I believe, is the greatest basketball accomplishment. Other accomplishments are all the players that you coached in the relationships you form. That's always the biggest accomplishment. How many people you get to graduate. But that Olympic gold medal, you weren't alive. I was alive. I remember watching them play in that final. So it was very significant to me that summer of 96 at the Olympics in Atlanta with all the women. The women just were on point, the American women that year. I can't even start on that because that's going to be way too long of me talking. But yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, though, I wonder if, because the Pac-12 is dissolving, if this is one of the reasons she's hanging it up. But I mean, she'll leave with Cameron Brink gonna be going. I mean, I think she's mocked at number 2 going to the WNBA draft right now. So not a bad legacy to leave on. I think it's her time to be done, do other things in life now that put the basketball retirement down, and then, again, the impact she's had on women's sports, everyone will always remember her. So.
And I love these coaches as they get older because they seem like such hard asses before. And then you have like the TikToks of calling her T-Dog and her participating with, like, I think it was like, I kind of like loved watching Haley Jones and Fran Beliebe and just their series and then talking to her. But the fact that they won a national championship in 2021 when they weren't even allowed in their state for a month, that's also just amazing. And you win a national championship pretty much 30 years after your last one, and you're still coaching and significant. Amazing.
Yep.
I mean, isn't that one of your favorite games that you played, when you were at Colorado, when you finally beat Stanford?
Yeah, I will always remember those. I mean, that was when we went back and forth with Stanford. We lost, then one on a buzzer beater half-court shot, and another in overtime when they hit a buzzer beater layup to put us into overtime. And we beat them the year of COVID with 0 people in the stands. But it was one of those.
I'm so sorry.
I know. It's okay. At least we beat them. We could say that we beat and then they won the national championship that year. So
should I go on YouTube watch the end of that game and like yell for you guys just to like pretend I'm there, film it, send it to you, and be like, I'm cheering for you. I know what's gonna happen, but like, yeah, go Buffs.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll
I could
expect
do
it.
that. I
Okay.
will. You tell Coach Payne, I'll do that, and then
Okay.
yeah, be like, I'll cheer. I can do it.
Okay.
Yeah. See, that's the significance when the games that you play against her team, the legend, because you know how good they are.
Yep.
That adds to it. Can't even go on that. All right. So
Yep.
from one coach to another, we're gonna talk briefly about the Washington Post article and the LA Times article with Kim Mulkey. I read the Washington Post article. I was very underwhelmed.
Yes,
I was like, I know this stuff. I'm good. There was a little bit in there, but it could have, I think, dipped into a little bit more hardcore investigative reporting. But other than that, I'm like, yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think her saying something made it a bigger deal than it was. The article really wasn't anything other than the truth or like what other people already knew. Like I already knew most of the information, like you said, like that was already stuff that had been said, talked about in the past. I think she made it a bigger deal and made more people pay attention to this article than what originally happened if she didn't say anything in the first place.
Yeah, I was thinking that there would be different kind of quotes from former like colleagues and players
Yeah.
than what it was. And so yeah, I was like, I'm good. I know this stuff.
Mhm.
There was a different article from like I want to say like 16 years ago of stuff that no one knew. Of course, the internet wasn't as popular then. About I'll just say I'm just gonna say about a team, and I was shocked at some of the things. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. If you want to inquire, send us a DM. I'll send you the article. I still have it. Uh, but also on that, I didn't like when the Washington Post dropped it before the UCLA LSU game. I felt like they could have waited because it's also I think it's unfair to the players because it had nothing to do with this group of players.
Mhm.
And same thing with the LA Times article. The LA Times runs an article, and everyone is rightly so to be upset about how horrible this thing was. You cannot call people good and evil, and then that also just kind of puts it was wrong. I'm happy it got called out. And then I'm also kind of just think it's pathetic when you call young women, young adults that are just playing that didn't do anything to you by based on things that you don't even know about them and say horrible things about them. And do you think that that's going to be good when you are the, as I say, the adultier adults? You're a horrible adult. And how many people did this read this before it got passed through, and then I'm just like, and you're calling them this? That's pretty stupid and pretty pathetic. That was
Yep,
my kind of thoughts on the LA article.
I agree. I just don't think that it was. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'm gonna keep a lot of those to myself. But I agree. I think how many eyes saw this before it was put out. It wasn't necessary. A lot of things that went into that. I think everyone who is listening should read it, have their own opinions on it. But I I didn't appreciate it very much. Just
And it was already redacted like within like a day and a half of getting called out, and so it was already redacted, but it was just pathetic because I feel like and I'm one, and there's certain things that are like I'm not a fan of LSU, but there are certain things where it's just like this is not right, and no one deserves this. They're players playing a game, trying
yeah,
to make money as much as they can, and they're good players, and they deserve a respect level that was not even close to given to them in that LA Times article. So there's that. Those are our thoughts. LSU were so right on calling that out. I'm so happy you did. I'm so happy they apologized to you. It was sad. Sad
yeah,
LA Times.
I agree.
All right. So now to one of our favorite things that happens as the year ends,
Mhm.
the infamous transfer portal. There are a lot of names up in this portal. There are a lot of reasons why this is going on. We've
Yes.
talked about some players that ultimately have to transfer if they want to continue playing. Um, and I'll start with that one right there. Caitlin Chin from Princeton has to play
Yep.
because the Ivy Leagues do not allow a fifth year after you've gotten your grad. And so she's from Princeton. Abby Myers went from Princeton to Maryland, made a huge impact. Got to play a little bit in the W so far. But yeah, Caitlin Chin is one of them. I'm going to go with some Oregon State players. Tamia Gardner who had a great game against Notre Dame, Talia von Oelhoffen, and reasons for that are their conference isn't going to be as good, because I think they genuinely enjoy playing together, but you got to get the most out of what you can when you can. Georgia Amore has already gone to Kentucky, followed her coach. That's probably like the highest recruit. Talia Scott from Arkansas, a high-scoring freshman. One that just came in here recently, Layla Filia from Michigan, and she will be a senior. She was a junior this year. Excellent player. And Deja Kelly, a 4-year starter from North Carolina for her COVID year, is going somewhere. But she has also said that she's not opposed to staying in North Carolina, but she's just putting her name in there. So she could stay, but I don't think she's going to stay. So also, I think Grace Van Sluten from Oregon. There's a lot of players that are in this. One that is not on top 10 list, going back to LSU, is one of the highest rated transfers last year that is not in top 10 list this year is Haley Van Lith. How is this possible? That's the question. How is it possible that she's not on a top 10?
I mean, I think could be a few possibilities. For one, she didn't have her best year at LSU, and there's a lot of factors for that, but she is still an amazing player, and I think she should be on this top 10 list. I also wonder if there is a lot of background talk that goes along with players who transfer a lot. So transferring 2 times in 2 years, that could be part of it. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I think she should be on this top 10 list. She is an incredible player. She played great for Louisville. Maybe LSU just wasn't the best fit for her. So I think if she finds a school that fits her better, fits her style of play better, she will have an amazing year. She just has to find that school. Who knows? I don't think she's announced where she's going yet, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. But I think she should be on this top 10 list, and I think they are missing out on that.
Well, she needs to go somewhere where she's off ball more. She needs a point guard. So I have a small thought. If she went to Kentucky, because Amore's a point guard, and if Van Lit's a shooting guard, even though both of them are not tall, you've got a 5'6" and a 5'7" there, but you have 2 scorers that in their careers have each averaged at different points in their careers 18 points a game, that can shoot well. Kentucky has Strack, that followed Kenny Brooks to Kentucky, who's in the post, who had a really good game against Baylor as a freshman. So you have a post player. So if that works out, then there's another part of me that's like, hey, Tamia Gardner, you are a small forward, power forward from Oregon State. Go to Kentucky. And then you have 2 post players. And if Van Lith goes, then you have your backcourt, and you have that, and then you get another one in there. Then Kentucky is for real this year. Like, these are my thoughts. Just because I have been down on the SEC about how it's pretty much just South Carolina and LSU lately, and nobody else is really making a big run in the NCAA tournament. And I like Kenny Brooks. So those are my thoughts. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a totally different coach and a totally different mindset when it comes to Van Lith, because she's had 2 intense coaches, because Jeff Walls is intense. Not the way that Kim is intense, but he's still pretty intense. So Kenny Brooks, his players love him, and he's pretty chill on the sideline. So I want to see what kind of different vibes would go there. And then the other part of me wants her to go to Stanford for some reason.
Yeah, I could see her doing, but I mean, I don't know. Have they announced who's going to take over for Stanford?
It's one of her assistants, I believe, Kate Pay. Yeah, short blonde-haired woman, longtime assistant. Which I think if you always question if you're going to retire because Tara's gotten older, that's got to kind of be in the works when you're recruiting. That like, hey, if I did retire, her, this person's taking over. So then that's someone that could still keep everybody there and have like a different vibe. You would know more about that than I would, like being a D1 player, about the relationship with assistants as opposed to head coaches and how that benefits the players if an assistant becomes a head coach because you know them.
And I mean, I think it also helps that she has been coaching with Tara, and kind of is probably going to take on some of the similar aspects of how Tara runs her team, runs the program. So that, I mean, especially for a legacy like Stanford, that's the best thing besides having some random person that they don't know come in, try and change things, change the culture, change a lot of things. Stanford doesn't need that. They're a dominant team at a dominant school. They don't need someone to come in and flip the program. They just need someone who's gonna be able to be steady and do the similar things and make it their own, obviously. But I think that's probably the best move for a school like Stanford. I mean, you see these schools who have had bad years, they need a new coach to come in to flip the program, but that's not the case for Stanford.
I'm going to throw out something else because we talked about Stanford, we talked about transfers. So Tennessee, one of my favorite teams, one of the greatest teams of all time, they hired a coach and they hired outside of the Tennessee bubble because they had Harley Warlick after Pat, and then they had Kelly Harper. Formerly Kelly Jolly won 3 national titles as a player for Pat. So both those former coaches were former players of Pat and then coached. Tennessee hires Marshall coach Kim Caldwell, and she had only had 1 year of coaching at Division One. So I had tremendous success in Division Two. I'm going to be very curious to see how Tennessee is going to adapt to this coaching change. Maybe they can get Van Lith. Maybe they get other people to come to Tennessee. Who knows on that? But it's going to be very interesting to me how everything is going to change when it comes to coaching and how everything is going to go next year, because I think everybody is going to be gunning for South Carolina, and I want to see if anyone can actually hit it and see if these transfers are going to try to go not where the money is or the WNBA is, but try to go somewhere where they can knock off South Carolina and try to build like another, not necessarily a super team, but someone that can do it. So
yeah, I guess we'll just have to see what happens when all those things get announced.
Yeah. All right. So with that being said, since we don't know where anyone's going with the transfer portal, who is the team that can beat South Carolina or has the best shot to beat South Carolina next year? I want to let you know that I did not pre-plan this question. It literally just came to me. So I'm thinking of my mind as well.
I think it's too early to tell, honestly, but I would have to go with, as of right now, with who's returning, potentially UConn.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the team that I would say has the best chance. I mean, we'll just see what happens with Stanford. It's hard because new coaching, whatever. But USC, I mean, USC with Juju, that's going to be one up there too. Just depends if who else they can get. I would have to say right now, probably UConn or USC would be my guesses, but probably UConn more than USC right now.
I'm going to throw in one other one. So this is another one that is going to be brand new to the SEC. It's going to be Texas. I think Texas will have a shot because they, depending on what the schedule is next year, they could play them once or twice in the regular season and maybe get them in the SEC tournament. Yeah. And Texas is an Elite Eight team, and Vic Schaefer is all defense. And he has battled Don Staley before in the SEC when he was a coach at Mississippi State. So then that's going to happen again. So I watch out for Texas, and I'm so happy you said USC because that is kind of a thought that has not been in my head about where transfers could go to play with Juju. Yeah. And we talked about that in the last one about how Juju's going to be there and how great it'd be to play for. So that would be the evolution of a super team since you have a superstar guard.
And then I'm going to say Colorado.
Nice. I'm not going to say any Kansas teams, even though Kansas State, if everybody comes back and stays, will be good again next year. Hopefully they can host again so I can go watch it. They should. Yeah. They got a good post player and they got a lot of good guards. So yeah. But
I think Colorado can do it.
There you go. Just going to keep coming back to go Buffs.
Yep, go Buffs always.
All right. So if Colorado's schedule, they'll either be in Lawrence or in Manhattan in Kansas. So do I need to go and yell for your former teammates while simultaneously yelling for my 2 Kansas teams? Is that something that is plausible?
I'm going to convert you into a Colorado fan. You're going to get converted. I'm not saying you can't. Obviously, Kansas at heart, but Colorado's going to be your number 3 right there. Okay, so here's my fun Colorado story. My mom and I drove through a snowstorm to go to the Big 8 tournament, which was 30 minutes from my house when I was a child, because KU was in the final, and I wanted to see Tamika Dixon and KU in the final. They got murdered by Colorado in Shelley Styles. And I believe that team, I think it was in 96, made it to the Elite Eight where they lost to Georgia, I think. Yeah, so that was Seal Berry's year. You're literally looking it up right now. But right then, I was like, ooh, that's a good guard. Oh, this is a good team.
And then
Talking about
one time
Shelly
at the
Sheets.
Shelly Sheets. There we go. Not Shelly Styles. I just keep going with Styles because Jackie Styles is my favorite player. Shelly Sheets. Yes, thank you for that. Correct. Yeah.
Weird.
They made it to the Elite Eight, but they killed KU in the Big Eight final. And then years later, I'm at the Big 12 tournament, and I see this woman because my mom and I moved because people had left when Colorado was still in the Big 12. And my mom and I moved to sit like front row across the way. And I end up sitting, and I kind of look over and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Seal Berry, like former Colorado coach. And I look at her and I was like, Coach Berry? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, what do you think of the game? Because I just addressed her kind of like with a question mark. And then we talked about the game all night. See, so I do have some Colorado like love very much in me for like a while. So I'm never not going to be like on their side when wanting them to do well. I just don't want them to beat Kansas teams. That's it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah, it works. I officiated a player that went to Colorado. We talked about her going to Colorado. I was like, oh, that'd be good. Cool. Because her sisters didn't go, so she was a different one. And I think she ended up being all Big 12 conference when she was there. But yeah, I'm definitely a Buffs fan in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
I mean, my Batman mug has her colors. So
good.
There you go.
I like that.
All right. So possible teams to beat South Carolina next year: UConn, USC, Texas, and I guess Colorado. We're gonna throw that one in there too.
Yes.
There you go. All right. So this has been a tremendous basketball season. We're gonna be back next week just to talk a little bit about the WNBA draft because I mean, there's fingers crossed that Quay and Jalen could get drafted and have a shot.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to see. They are projected right now to be a second round and a third round pick. So we'll see how Jalen Sherrod and Quay Miller do when we get in the draft coming up here soon. And I'm very curious to see where a couple of these players end up going and then see if they can make a roster because it is the toughest league to play in. But yeah. And then we can talk about how Indiana Fever tickets are already way more expensive than they were. And everyone else is adjusting accordingly when it comes to playing them, as the Las Vegas Aces have already changed their venue to accommodate for more seats because Caitlin's going to be coming to town.
Yeah.
That's why she's a goat.
She's the goat.
Yep. I beat you to it. I'm so sorry. I should have let you have that one. That's the goat. All right. So UConn, USC, Texas, and Colorado are the ones to knock off South Carolina. But great college basketball season, a lot of history being made. We say goodbye to some people, and we'll see on what the next generation can keep bringing for us. Yeah.
It's going to be a fun next year to watch.
Yeah. All right. Well, for Across the Pond Women's College Basketball, I'm Stacia Whitaker.
And I'm Aubrey Knight.
Have a lovely day, guys. See you later.
Bye. Thanks for listening.